welcome everyone to an exciting episode of Riding Through the Unknown. I'm your host, Michael, and I am having to apologize that we are starting a little late. That was my fault. In my hurry this morning on the road trip, I forgot to send the link to my guest, so we had to hurry and get all that logistically fixed. So I sincerely apologize to everyone and thank you all for your patience and tuning in. And for those of you who are fans of the guest and the show, will recognize my guest. And please, I apologize. I'm working on 3 hours of sleep, so if I stumble, I just will do my best to recompose and reconnect myself. But I am so blessed and so honored to have my guest with us tonight. Not only is he so gracious enough to allow us to air on his network, but he is a great friend and someone who enjoy talking with. And so I'm going to hand it over to my guest, the one, the only, super talented, multifaceted Jeff Renel.
Thank you, man. Those are two kinds of word, but thank you for having me back on Riding Through the Unknown. I'm always honored to be on here, and I'm always have a great time talking with you, Michael. I look back, I just had a flashback on how we met and stuff, which was on the internet, and it was like, hey, you do a show? Great, I got a network. Why don't you come on over? And so it's funny how things happen. I mean, I look at the internet, and it's just amazing how we interact on it now. I have so many friends that I've never even met before on the internet, but in a way, we're close friends. It's like I know them really good. So, and you're one of them on that list. I mean, we were just talking a little bit ago on how we could meet up and go do some adventures ourselves, which I think would be absolutely wonderful. You're always welcome out here to Utah to come check out all the fun, exciting places out here. I had no idea that I was moving to such a hot spot when I moved here from Vegas, and absolutely love it. I feel like I'm in the center of strangeness, and I think I truly am.
Well, I cannot imagine a much better spot for you with all that you do. I mean, you're right by Bradshaw Ranch, Skinwalker Ranch, and is it Space Wolf Research?
Yeah. That Space Wolf Research is my good buddy Ryan Burns' property, and that is right next door to Skinwalker Ranch out in the Uinta Mesa. That's 2.5 hours from here, and that's my home away from home, really. Now that the weather's warming up, I'm actually looking on when I can break free and get out there for a little while. And since we're talking about it, if you don't mind, I'm gonna push a little something here. I know Phenomicon is happening out in Vernal. I want to say it's September 6th through 7th. I was actually trying to look it up before you just called me a little bit ago. I'll see if I can find that information a little bit later for everybody out there. But if you come out to Phenomicon, which is out in Vernal, Utah, absolutely fabulous conference. It's put on by the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch people. So it's a very well done conference, has a lot of amazing guests every year. I mean, the people I got to hang out with last year and do take them on personal sky watches over there at Space Research were just phenomenal. I had a great weekend with all these amazing people that I just can't say enough about how great it's been out there with Ryan and everybody. But yeah, that's my home away from home. And so, forgot what I was getting into with the Phenomicon. Sorry, guys. But for Phenomicon, they've actually asked Ryan if we could do some sky watches out there this year, which we did last year, but we did it more for private people last year. And I don't know if it's going to be exactly like we did last year since it was private. We got a little bit more adventurous and stuff. I would like to do that again this year. But I'm going to have to find out from the Phenomicon people what they're looking to do, and also from Ryan because it is his property. And he's asking me to do these sky watches because I guess at this time his schedule's not open to do it. But yeah, I want to invite everybody. Come out to Phenomicon. It's this September. Again, I want to say it's around the 6th and 7th. It's, I believe, the second weekend of September. But definitely get in and check online to make sure. But it's a wonderful conference. I go every year. I think I've only missed 1 year so far. But every year it's just absolute blast. I mean, I could just go on and on after story of the fun stuff that we've done out there during the conference weekend and stuff. But again, yeah, we'll be doing sky watches. We'll be having a lot of fun there. And so you can get tickets to the sky watch if you want to come. And I was trying to find that info right before we got on air here, so I will try to find it before we get off.
Actually,
yeah.
I found Phenomicon's website, so I put it on the bottom, and
Perfect.
it is September 3rd to the 6th.
Okay, so then it's going to be probably the first weekend of September. But again, I can't say it is a great conference, and it's truly in the middle of nowhere, but that middle of nowhere is a freaking hot spot. I mean, you could be there a whole week and you won't be able to have enough time to do everything out there. It's one of the best spots for dinosaurs. Like the dinosaur centers there are just absolutely amazing. So you could go check out dinosaur fossils. They have one of the most amazing walls of fossils out there. I haven't actually personally checked it out yet because I'm too busy doing other stuff. But you got Mount McConkey or McConkey Ranch out there. You got 7 Mile Canyon, which both of these places are just loaded with petroglyphs, crazy petroglyphs where, you know, I'm going to say there's UFOs and other crazy stuff in these petroglyphs by far. So you got that out there. You got Skinwalker Ranch. You got Space Wolf Research. Just in that area alone it is an absolute hotspot. The Uinta Basin is the craziest spot I've ever been to on this planet so far. It has to be one of the craziest spots I would think on the planet. It's well, we've had this discussion before. It's not just Skinwalker; it's the whole Uinta Basin. It's crazy up there. A lot of fun. But also up here we have Mount Wilson, which we just went to a few months back. Well, it's probably been about 6 months now before the winter came. Went up there with Brad Olson, good friend too, Brett Luter's a researcher, author, all of that. And another good friend of mine, Eric Awakening Man, who me and him do a lot of adventures together. But matter of fact, last year at the Phenomicon weekend up there, one of the guys was associated with Mount Wilson, so that opened up the door for me to be able to get over there and go to Mount Wilson. And a lot of people actually are not familiar with Mount Wilson right now. I mean, it's just kind of got on the map, but Mount Wilson was owned by Robert Bigelow. He's one, not the original owner of Skinwalker, but he's the one main owner that really publicized it and got it going after, God, why can't I think of his name now? Mr. Sherman. The Shermans owned it and then sold it to Robert Bigelow. But Robert Bigelow had actually purchased Mount Wilson a few weeks before Skinwalker Ranch, from what I was told. And it has some crazy stuff up there. We spent almost a week up there, like I said, about 6 months ago. Had a great time. The owner there, Jeff McBurney, and his girlfriend, Nick Knack, just were absolutely amazing. It's a place where everybody can go. You just need to make reservations with them up there, and you can go check it out. They have a crazy history. We had a great time. Jeff personally took us around. He showed us this place, this shaman cave, which was right by his ranch and stuff. And supposedly the shaman in that cave has a backdrop story of why Robert Bigelow actually sold and got out of that place. Supposedly the shaman is the protector of the land, and it started harassing Bigelow. What they're doing there, who knows? But when you see what's going on in that place and where it's at, you're like, okay, there was something going on here for them to come here. Putoff was there. I mean, all the main scientists that deal with Robert Bigelow were there. There's pictures of them all out there scanning and surveying the land and stuff. So obviously, something was going on. They built a runway out in the middle of the Nevada desert, in the middle of nowhere. They built a runway for DC-10s to be able to land. And so you're going to tell me that wasn't something going on in this ranch? There obviously was. What exactly? I'm not sure. My opinion differs from the owner Jeff, but my opinion comes from some of the stuff he's told me. I feel that there probably was a downed craft there at one point. They probably retrieved that craft and no longer needed that property and sold the property. That's my belief at this present time, just from what I know. But something obviously went down here, and that's just, that's a good 5 hours away from me too. Like you said, there's Bradshaw Ranch, which that's a little bit further. That's out in Arizona and stuff. So that's a good, I think it's 9 hours from me. But if I had a chance to meet you there, I would definitely meet you there, Michael, because Bradshaw Ranch is absolutely amazing. That's one of the first places I was actually researching before I ever found out about Skinwalker Ranch and all of these other amazing places. And now, lo and behold, I get to be a regular at most of these places. So I'm absolutely loving it. Bradshaw Ranch is amazing. If you're out in that area, Michael, I highly suggest you go there. I can hook you up with some people in Sedona that you can meet up with, and they might be able to take you out there, but they can definitely point you in the right direction. You can camp out there. There's some camping sites that's right by there. That's what we did. We camped just right outside of where Bradshaw Ranch is. Spent the night there. Can't say that I snuck in, but I get some footage from Bradshaw Ranch from somebody. I don't know who it was, but yeah, it's a fun place though.
I'm kind of curious your opinion of
Do we freeze up?
when we talk. Sorry.
I know you're good. I thought we.
Yeah, apparently there's a little lag. So I was just going to ask, with your research and familiarity with the ranches, is there maybe like a timeline? Like, was Bradshaw the first one and then it went to Skinwalker and Space Wolf is nearby? Or could it be, was Space Wolf first and then...
Well, Space Wolf actually, I mean, it's right next door to Skinwalker Ranch. And so truthfully, I mean, it's separated now, but Space Wolf and Skinwalker Ranch, you should just put them together. They're one of the same. A lot of the things that makes Skinwalker Ranch so interesting actually falls into Space Wolf research land. So there's a really interesting connection there. So in my opinion, I just kind of look at them as the same. They're separate properties, separate owners, of course, separate research going on there at both places. I just recently in December had a meeting with Brandon Fugel, the owner of Skinwalker Ranch. He wanted to see some of the footage that I've captured out there. And, it was a great interview. Our meeting, I should say. It wasn't an interview, but it was a great meeting. He was a really amazing person, very cordial, nice as could be. We spent probably 2.5 hours together, and it was like 9:30 at night on a Thursday, I think it was. And boom, he's zooming off at 9:30 at night to go to some other meeting and stuff in a hurry. So the guy's busy as hell. I mean, he kind of reminds me of Trump, somebody that just never sleeps and is just constantly always working. So I have a lot of respect for Brandon Fugel. I think he's doing amazing work there. But they are 100% separate from Space Wolf Research. I think that's kind of the way they want to keep it, and I don't blame them. You want to kind of keep your research to yourself in a way, so that way it just doesn't get messed up with other people's stuff and what they're doing. So I understand what he's doing, but yeah, they're two separate ranches altogether. But in the way the land is there, you just might as well blend them in together. So, but with your question there on what was the very first ranch, I think Bradshaw Ranch is the first one that really got notoriety. because this started back in the 60s, and I want to say more mid 60s is when Robert, I believe his first name is Robert, but Mr. Bradshaw, I believe Bradshaw bought that property in the 60s. They were filming Westerns there. Elvis filmed a movie there, even, I believe Elvis did, but I know Wayne, God, who was the big cowboy? Wayne, why
John
can't I think
Wayne.
of his name? John Wayne, yes, I was going to say Wayne Newton. The Vegas guy in me, Wayne Newton. But John Wayne filmed a few old westerns out there and stuff too. And so during the filming is when while Mr. Bradshaw owned it, during the filming, during all this time when they were using it, there was always just strange things happen. And so Linda Bradshaw, Mr. Bradshaw's wife, of course, she got a hold of Tom Dongo's number from some friends or somehow, but she was referred to Tom Dongo, who was the first main researcher out there at Bradshaw Ranch. And then he started researching there. And the stuff that was going on there is just absolutely amazing. I'm so fascinated by all of these ranches, because just their stories and what's going on there is just Bradshaw Ranch and Skinwalker are so similar. It's unbelievable. I mean, I think there's some very thin veil in these areas that when the energy hits just right, whatever it might be, allows that veil to thin. And when it thins, then that's when you have crazy experiences in the weirdest ways. And I'll just give an example on that. I mean, Linda Bradshaw would talk about at times where they saw a craft in the sky, or even one time she talks about the craft landing right outside their cabin there, their house. And afterwards, just right afterwards, especially this time that the craft landed outside their house, I believe it had left at this point. They went outside. They brought the video camera outside, and I can't remember what they filmed at this time, but throughout the time they had filmed wild boars that don't exist in that area at all. I think the closest area that they would even be at is like 200-300 miles away. There was sightings of a raptor in the bushes that was going into the bushes. So they saw like a dinosaur, and they were just seeing things that didn't fit in the time frame. One time, Linda Bradshaw saw like a TV screen in the sky with a different view, like a picture in there, and there was a UFO in that picture. And I mean, just crazy stuff. So when you read this, they got amazing books. All my books are packed up because I just moved. But I want to say it's called Emerging Dimensions, and it's by Tom Dongo and Linda Bradshaw. An amazing book, and it talks about their experiences on things that they were seeing and experiencing. And it's absolutely amazing. It makes you wonder what's going on in this planet. I mean, that's what drives us to do what we do, right, Michael, is to understand what's going on here. And that's what I want to, I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, you're obsessed with aliens. I'm not at all. I'm obsessed with consciousness, man. I want to understand how all of this is plausible in our reality. And the only thing that explains it to me is consciousness. I think consciousness is the most amazing thing. But when you look at some of these things, it just blows your mind, and you're like, what is going on here? And they got amazing pictures. So I would definitely recommend finding, again, I believe it's Emerging Dimensions. Tom Dongo and Linda Bradshaw wrote it together. They have a few books out about Bradshaw Ranch, and Tom Dongo was the leading researcher there. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to meet Tom or interview Tom. He's a hard guy to get on your show. I've been trying to get him on mine, even though I know him and my friends are really good friends with him and stuff. He's one of the first researchers I got a chance to meet because I was researching Bradshaw Ranch when I first got into the UFO community. And just amazing stuff. But then when you look at Skinwalker Ranch, almost the same stuff is going on there, where it's like the veil gets thin and you start to see things that don't belong in this reality. And it's mind-boggling, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I looked it up. The book is Merging Dimensions, The Opening Portals of
There you go.
Sedona.
That's it right there. Emerging Dimensions, The Opening Portals of Sedona book by Linda Bradshaw and Tom Dongo. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Anything you find on Dongo.
So an interesting question I have, and you talked about the veils thinning and why they're similar. I wonder because they're talking about the stuff like, the unknown material under Skinwalker Ranch. Could there be a tunnel system
All right. I
connecting
don't know if
to.
it's me or
There we go. You're
can
I
you
think
hear
you're
me
back.
okay?
I can you hear me?
Okay. Is it on my end or is yeah, I can hear you, but you're breaking up when you're talking about the book. Is it on my end, do you know, or is it on your end? Because this is the first show I've ever done with this internet service here, and I'm not sure how good it is.
uh I it might be on your end because I haven't had any alerts about the signal strength here dropping, and I'm back at home base. So um
Yeah.
it may be, but what I was asking is, you're mentioning the veil between the two being, how the activity is similar. And Skinwalker Ranch on the show, they keep talking about this material that shouldn't be under the ground. Could it be like, I don't want to say a UFO base, but could it be like a tunnel system that connects both the Bradshaw and Skinwalker?
That's a good question. At this point in time, I wouldn't be surprised. I have no evidence that shows that there is. Tom Dongo has told me though before that there are tunnels coming from Area 51 out to Sedona. Whether they go to Bradshaw Ranch or I'm not sure. Bradshaw Ranch is interesting. If you've been out there, I mean, what's funny about both of them too is they're both taken over kind of by our government. I look at Robert Bigelow as kind of the government because the government had some influence of Robert Bigelow coming over and taking over Skinwalker Ranch, in my opinion. The government, well, I don't want to say black op government, secret program government had, I believe, some saying Robert Bigelow purchasing it and also had saying him selling it because they sold it for a certain reason. Why, I'm not 100% sure, but somebody like Robert Bigelow, I don't think is just going to go, oh, I'm bored of Skinwalker Ranch, let me get rid of it. I think there is other reasons around it. I think Brandon Fugel, in my opinion, is just continuing that type of research. They just put somebody new in there, made it look different, get new energy. I don't know, whatever it is, but I I don't know.
Well,
I want to be. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, with the line that you're going on too, is it's interesting how Bigelow was don't disclose anything, but Brandon is all about saying, here's the research we're doing, this is what we're finding. And so it's like total polar opposites with them. Is they didn't allow one, but they're allowing the other to share some.
Yeah, and meeting Brandon changed my mind on some of that stuff. I do truly believe he wants to get this information out. He wants to inform people and educate people just like we are trying to do. Are they giving us all the information? I don't think so. Again, I think black op parts of the government programs and stuff like that. I mean, are they working with Brandon Fugel per se? I don't know, but I think they have a hand in what's going on there. I don't think a lot of the information is being revealed, in my opinion. And this is just my opinion. I'm, no proof on this, just things that I've seen, heard, and talking to certain people. Um, I think something. If I don't want to say nefarious, just I think there's some black op control going on with Skinwalker Ranch, and to what extent, I have no clue. It's just my feeling on what I see going on here. I don't believe we're getting all the story out of Skinwalker Ranch on the show. And hey, if I owned it and was putting all my money into it, would I be giving everybody all the info? No, because you paid all that money for it. I mean, I think you want to continue the research, make sure the research done before you give things out. Who knows? But I really did like Brandon Fugel. He changed my mind on a lot of things because I wasn't on board with their program 100%. Before that, I have my doubts on a lot of the things that they give out to us. But I do believe what he's giving out is 100% true. So if you see it on the show, I don't think they're fabricating anything. I do believe it's true. I just don't think they're giving us all the info. I think there's stuff going on there that they're not letting people know at this present time. Whether it'll be something in the future, who knows? But you mentioned tunnels under Skinwalker Ranch. I'll just give you my opinion on this. And this is again where I go to this aspect of it. I do believe that there's some structure under Skinwalker Ranch. I do believe that this is probably thousands of years old. I believe it's an old ancient alien base from what I've talked to with other researchers, what I've seen through treasure hunters researchers, not regular UFO researchers, treasure hunters. Utah is full of treasure hunters that have found amazing stuff. And thank God, because of Ryan Burns at Space Wolf Research, he has introduced me to some of these amazing treasure hunters. And what they have found is mind boggling, dude. I mean, they're finding better stuff than all of us, in my opinion. I mean, they're finding amazing stuff, giants, everything. And so it's really amazing. But I've seen some photos, and we might have talked about it before, but I've seen photos uh, of thermal imaging from under Skinwalker Ranch from a satellite. And it's pretty interesting stuff. I do believe there's something going on there, whether it's an ancient UFO base that's still being occupied by ancient aliens, whether they abandoned it and our government found it is another thing. Whether they're working in cahoots, maybe. I'm not sure, but I do believe there's something under there. There's something special under there. But then again, there might not be anything because the way the structure is made up here in Utah with all the volcanic activity that happened here in the ancient past, there's a lot of different canals and tunnels and water waves under, it's basically a honeycomb underground here in Utah in the Uinta Mesa area. And the way the water flows underneath it, like if you've ever watched Blind Frog Ranch on the Discovery Channel, Blind Frog Ranch is another ranch that's up here. If you don't know about it, do a little research on it. The Discovery show, I think, is shit. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if I can swear on your show, but I think it's absolute garbage. I love Dwayne Ollinger. I think he's a great cowboy. I have my questions about him now because the more I find out about stuff, you find out crazy stuff, and you're just like, huh, interesting. So the whole Blind Frog Ranch thing is interesting. But if you ever watch the show, they'll show stuff from them hunting for gold of how the water waves are under Utah here. And in my opinion, I think because of the way the water runs under here, the minerals, the different types of rocks here, there's supposedly an ancient asteroid landing field out there in the Uinta Mesa that might be the original cause of all of this. But the way the water flows and everything under there, I think it creates a certain magnetic activity. Maybe that's why, if there is an alien base under there, maybe that's why they built the base there, is because they knew this energy was special there. I don't know. But in a lot of ways, it reminds me of things that you would see under the pyramid, what Nikola Tesla was doing to create free energy, the way the water flows within that. And so to me, maybe it creates a certain type of energy just in that area because I'm telling you, Uinta Mesa is a special spot. There is so much UFO activity, Bigfoot activity, orbs. I mean, you name it, it's there. It's there.
And what's interesting is while you were talking about all of that, I don't know if means anything, but I had a flash of the Grand Canyon where there's that section of the Grand Canyon that has nobody's allowed in. And then I'm looking at it and going, well, the Grand Canyon's in alignment with the basin. Could there
Well,
be
you
a
know what?
connection?
Well, you know where that connection goes to, actually, don't you? Is Egypt. It lines
Right.
up perfectly with a lot of things in Egypt. I mean, absolutely perfect. If you do some research and you go to the book, the Flower of Life by Drunvalo Melchizedek, he has the Flower of Life 1 and Flower of Life 2. He'll go in and talk about some of this. But are you familiar with Kincaid and in the Grand Canyon back in, was it like 1914, something like that? Are you familiar with that at all?
I've read a little bit about how they went and they found this cave, but then they couldn't find the cave again, and that there were
Well,
treasures in there of Egypt, but then they were like told not to talk about it.
yeah, then there's an actual newspaper clip article from the Arizona Gazette that you can find. I can't remember the exact date. I want to say maybe it's 1904. It's somewhere in the beginning of the 1900s and I can't remember the initials, but it's Kincaid. There's some initials before his name, but it's Kincaid. But anyhow, this explorer went and he was in the Grand Canyon and he had to scale a cliff that went up 800 feet. And when he did this, he found a cave up there. And you're right, it had Egyptian artifacts in there. It had Tibetan artifacts in there. It had Buddhist artifacts. I mean, it just had a whole bunch of different stuff in there. Supposedly, there was mummies in there as well too. And so he went to oh god, uh, what's the one place that the Smithsonian? He went and got a hold of these people. They're the ones that shut the cave down. Kincaid was never found again or heard from again after this. They removed everything. Nothing can be found again. So it's the same thing with giants. Anytime you tell them that there's giants there, they'll come and take the giants. The person that found it usually disappears, and all the artifacts, everything disappears. And that's exactly what happened there. From my understanding, is there is another cave right across the canyon of the Grand Canyon that has more stuff. And so when they found that one, that's when they shut off that whole area. But they're in that area, from what I understand, and Clifford Mahooty. I don't know if you remember Clifford Mahooty. He was on Ancient Aliens a lot of times. He was a
Right.
Zuni chief, Zuni elder. He was one of our good friends and stuff, and he'd tell us that the Grand Canyon has a lot of Egyptian things within it. There's a lot of areas that are named after Egyptian spots. So there is, and there's a lot of artifacts that people have found within Arizona that have Egyptian ties to it. Even one, and I don't know the name of it and stuff, but there is like a little cave that you can go into that somebody had made for the celestial tracking and
Alignment.
all of that stuff. Yeah, alignment. Thank you. And in that cave, they have hieroglyphs that match up with the Egyptian hieroglyphs. I mean, not as perfect as you would see in Egypt because they're actually, scraped and carved on there, but you would see the bull and all of these other things that resemble the Egyptian culture. So there are things here in Arizona, and I wouldn't be surprised. I think they've found stuff here in Utah as well. And again, that's through the treasure hunters. Terry Carter's one of them. Terry Carter's absolutely amazing. Uh, yeah, dude, if you could get up here, dude, I could take you to a lot of fun stuff. As a matter of fact, it's coming up in a couple months in June. Terry Carter, the treasure hunter, and his buddies, they do a free conference up in Duchesne, which is just about an hour away from Skinwalker Ranch. They do an amazing conference up there. It's usually about a Bigfoot and a bunch of other stuff like that and treasure hunting, but they get amazing guests up there that just unbelievable. And then the coolest thing is on Saturday, it'll be open mic night on Saturday during the day, because this is out at a park, and so it's just free for all. Everybody can come up and tell their stories, but you'll hear the most amazing Bigfoot stories from out there in the Uinta Basin, which I've had experience out there too with Bigfoot. So I'm telling you, Great, just a great hot spot out here.
Very cool. And what I find interesting is, we talk about how impossible it could be to have Egyptian in that area when I don't know if you know George Mitrovic, but he's from Australia and he has science backing that in prehistory during the Bronze Age, they were mining the Mississippi Valley for copper. It was the largest copper mine available, and so as long as when copper was the material to be at the time, they were in the Mississippi. And so when we left the Bronze Age and copper was no longer really sought after, he goes, well, they just simply put their gear down, got on their boats, sailed out, and that's why we find buckets or tools that are Stone Age type area there is because they were there. And that's why the Phoenicians have it on their coin. And it's like, we don't think about that, but that then, in fact, makes the Americas known in prehistory time. And so, what the Phoenicians knew, the Phoenicians traded with the Egyptians, so the Egyptians would have known. So, they very well could have come.
Well, I think they did. Maybe that's how the Templar knew about it. I mean, I think, especially now, I mean, when I was younger, I didn't know any better about our history and stuff. But now with the friends that I have, the research I've done, and you start to look at our past, it definitely is way different than what they've ever told us it was. I mean, did they dumb it down for us, or were they just, are we just that dumb that we thought so small of the people of our past? They definitely had a way better history than we ever give them credit for, because there's no way cavemen came out of the cave. Is it David Childress, I think, that says this, what do they do? Come out of a cave and just build the hardest thing they could ever think of building, the Great Pyramid. It's like, no, that just did not happen. I'm a stone specialist. I can guarantee you there's no way none of that stuff was built with a chisel and hammer. There's just no effing way possible, period. Because that was my thing. When Ancient Aliens first came out, I'm just like, oh my God. Oh, there's no way they built these. And it was like, I wish I was dreaming about being able to have this discussion with Giorgio and David Childress. And,
Yeah.
I would love to just discuss this with these guys. And lo and behold, like 4 or 5 years later, I'm sitting in David's living room having that discussion with them. It's like, wow, freaking life is just so amazing. And at the time, I didn't know any of them when Ancient Aliens first came out, but just the way life works, I got lucky. And next thing I know, 4 or 5 years later, sitting in David's living room discussing it with them and just, really getting into it, because there's just no way. I mean, with the tools that we have today, I mean, we're starting to catch up to do some of those things that they did. When you look at Pumapunku and you look at the inside corners on the H blocks and stuff, like, dude, there's no way we can do that. I mean, the technique, the type of tool you have to do to accomplish an inside 90-degree corner is, dude, we don't have a tool that can do it. I've never seen one in my stone life yet that can create a corner like that. And it's not like, I mean, like I saw an article of David Childress's in one of his magazines where they talked about on one of the sarcophaguses, they used this little simple core drill. Like if you've ever watched Ancient Aliens, you see Chris Dunn using a tool that he kind of talked about doing, where they use another granite piece to core in there. No, not even freaking possible. And how fucking long would that take? Because the thing is it has to be cut out perfect from the get-go. If you're using some round tool and you're just, drilling holes until you get a sarcophagus area where you can lay a body in there, how are you going to square it out to 90 degrees? Because when you're sanding that stone, it just doesn't work that way. You can't sand out rounded stone to get it super solid flat without having super advanced tools. And in my opinion, it has to be cut out next to perfect before you even sand it, because when you start to sand stone, there's complications there, because not all stone is the same density throughout the stone. And so if you got hard spots and soft spots, they sand different, and you're not going to get a perfect hieroglyph or anything like that. And what they got in Egypt are absolutely perfect, absolutely symmetrical. So there's no way in hell that they were doing this with chisel and hammer. They had to be doing this with highly advanced tools.
Well,
And yeah, go for it.
I just had a thought that popped in my head is, now they're saying like giants could have been involved in making the pyramids and other structures. And
Oh,
we
I
know
believe that.
if they had an axe, we know if we take an axe like to wood and you do two chops, you can get a 90-degree angle. Could the giants have used an axe and cut the stone?
Well, wood and stone are two different things, though, because stone is just a hard, dense thing. Once it gets that hard, it's brittle. So with a tree, you're chopping into something that is has moisture to it. So the what's the word I'm looking for? The consistency of both of them are two different things. So
Okay.
I don't you really couldn't do that. You would no, and that's the thing. See, with the best tools we have are usually, the wet saw, stuff like that, where you use water. Once the water's introduced onto a stone, usually the vein in the stone is the weakest spot. Okay, so once the water gets into that vein, it weakens the stone. But even if I'm not using water, just if I'm using hammer and chisel and I'm chiseling, and say I'm like, I got this big, huge wall and I'm chiseling in the Pharaoh's latest victory on the battlefield, and I'm almost done. I've got 10% left of this wall to do. And I hit a vein and this big, huge chunk comes falling off and just destroys, a third of the stuff I just, chiseled into the thing. What do? You don't just start over. I mean, how do you do that? And we don't see any areas in any of these amazing stuff like in the Buddha. I mean, to me, the Great Pyramid is absolutely fascinating. Pyramids in Mexico, all the pyramids are fascinating. But what really blows my mind as a stone guy is some of these pyramids, but in the Buddhist temples. I mean, these are just mind blowing. Where they went into the mountain and removed the rock around everything. I forget the name of it. I need to memorize it because it's my most favorite thing in the world. I mean, it's just so fascinating that they literally went in and removed the stone away and created the buildings and everything in out of the mountain. And so there's bridges, there's different buildings. I mean, all kinds of amazing stuff. These elephant statues and stuff like that. There's all these amazing. I mean, it's just so unbelievable. And there wasn't one stone added. Nowhere. I mean, they didn't just come and bring extra stones in for the bridge. They removed the rock around it to make the bridge, to make the building. Kind of like, some of the buildings you would see in Africa where they built them down into the ground. And so you don't even see the building until you come up on it. And there's these amazing structures that go down into the ground. It would be something to that extent, but you're taking it out of the mountain. And that, in my mind, is next to impossible. How do you figure out where the weak spots are from the vein to be able to build a bridge? I mean, you might be able to cut it all out and remove everything, but what if you got the vein going through the middle of the bridge and somebody tries to walk across the bridge and just that little extra weight creates that vein to break? What they did is just absolutely amazing. The technology they had on this planet before our history ever existed is way beyond our comprehension, in my opinion. I think they are doing things absolutely spectacular. I mean, I've had this discussion with a lot of other researchers on how do you remove that stone? And I mean, the only thing we could think of in my mind that even makes halfway good sense is they had something that actually maybe deteriorated the stone, so it would just dissolve in front of them. And maybe as it's dissolving, they're able to take those minerals and the sand out of there and be able to use it somewhere else. Because again, where's the, just to take all of that out of there and everything's great, but where's the deposit? Where's all the leftover rocks that they took out of there? It's nowhere near there, so A lot of this stuff is just absolutely mind blowing in my mind. And, again, our history is way different than we ever thought. Like, I mean, I was just watching the program. I mean, I've seen it tons of times, but it's something you got to question. I'm sure you've seen it. Strange, you can look it up on the internet, strange things that shouldn't exist. And matter of fact, I think it was found in Texas, out in your neck of the woods. But that the hammer axe, you know what I'm talking about? That was
Yeah,
embedded in rock. That I think they say it's 400 million years old or something to that. There's no other way it could be in the rock that deep, unless it's been there for millions and millions and millions of years. I want to say, do you know what I'm talking about? It's
I
like a
do.
pick hat. It's a hammer pick or something like that. And I want to say, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say they believe it's been there for 400 million years.
That it sounds right. It's been a while since I looked at it, but yeah, it's been there longer than anything in existence, and so yeah, it really brings into the question of, yeah, like you're saying, nature wouldn't form this over time. It wouldn't erode and create the look of the axe because it's too identifiable, and it's not like we could go, oh look, that tool looks like a tool. Let's make ours off of that, and that was the model used. So yeah, it's
Well, it was buried in the bedrock for God knows how long. It was supposedly around 400 million years until just recently. Because when did they discover it? It wasn't. I don't. I think it was less. I want to say less than 50 years ago that they discovered it. So, I mean, we've had hammers before that. So we probably used a hammer just to get that hammer out. But it's just amazing. I mean, our history, I think, is way different than what we're led to believe. I think if you want to get a good idea of your history, you got to start to go into the Indian texts, into the, God, what's the, I want to say Vatican is what's the
no,
book called? It's not the Vatican. What do you guys know?
the Vedic.
Research, yes, research that stuff. I mean, because they tell you what's going on in there. And then when you look at what they're talking about in there, there's actual facts that you can start to prove. I mean, like there's areas in India that looks like a nuclear bomb or something went off there where the sand turned to glass. And that only happens from a high heat signature like that, like a nuclear blast or something. Well, you look into their books and stuff and you see how they had their gods had wars. It kind of lines up. I mean, it all makes sense. And they have amazing books. Like I'm going to go buy some books. They got amazing books that were written way back then on how to build homes and structures and how to make them, ancient times where they're earthquake proof. I mean, they got amazing stuff. And so you look at what they got in those books. I believe they're fact. I believe, it's not myth. I believe that was based on fact, in my opinion. The
Right.
Indian stuff and really fascinating stuff. Our whole creation is fascinating. You know that. That's
Oh,
why we do what we do.
yeah, and I actually had an idea. Because I read somewhere where, like Petra, they're talking about they may have used like an acid material that when they applied it, it created the smooth uh, columns and everything, and they built it from the top down and would remove the sand as they went down. That's how everything is so identical and everything. And I was like, how could they use the acid though? Because acid would burn the hands, and so I don't think you'd have a worker on there applying acid and then go, "Oh well, I can't work anymore," and they go, "Okay, next
Well,
person."
there again, we from our own ignorance, we look at it like they wouldn't have gloves or something. But if they're that far advanced where they understand how to use acid that way, then I'm sure they knew how to protect themselves in a way. I mean, maybe they didn't care about the workers and stuff like that. But I don't see it that way. I think they took very good care of their workers back in the days these pyramids were built and stuff. I mean, you look at the Mayan. What was it in? God, it's right. I can see the word. It's right on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of it. Tuacon. Is it?
Um, Ticanisha?
I know.
Or no?
One of
Teotihuacan.
the
Teotihuacan.
pyramids in Mexico. Yes, yes. There they got the one. They discovered that they had mercury under there, just like in China.
Yeah.
So the temple in China and then the pyramid in Mexico, they're both using mercury basically in the same way. They were using it to create a river look, flowing water and stuff. And so how did they get so much mercury to put in there? Because you have to do a process to create mercury. Mercury just doesn't create naturally in uh in in nature. You got to actually, put a couple different minerals and chemicals together to create mercury. And so they knew what they were doing to create the mercury. So I don't know. I think they had the right technology to work with the things that they worked with. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be working with them. Did they not just care about the people and just force them to do it? Maybe. Maybe they had slaves. Maybe they used the slaves of other tribes. Who knows? Have no clue on that. But what they did do is mind blowing and absolutely phenomenal because I think we're starting to realize that it kind of goes against the physics that we're actually looking at ourselves. I mean, I find it fascinating. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, and we're thinking because we use acid, that's the only liquid form that could do that, and they may have had a different
Yeah.
chemical mixture that they might have accidentally bumped and said, "Oh, look, this melted this rock away, and we could use this to make this, and it doesn't harm anybody." I mean, we're
They,
just
they,
assuming they would have had to use acid.
yeah. And they might have found some simple way that we just have never seen or understood yet that allowed them to do that. Who knows? But acid, you know, uh, I work with acid with working with stone, and it can be very helpful in a lot of ways. I use it to polish up actual stone and stuff, which is kind of amazing. Why, you would think using acid on stone is going to dull it and mess it up, but I'll use certain compounds when I'm repolishing people's countertops and brings it to a beautiful shine. But then you do have to deactivate it, and so you got to deactivate it with the soap. Otherwise, it keeps eating through the stone. But if they use stuff like that, I mean, I don't know about after all these years if there'd be telltale signs. But if you used acid, there would be probably areas that you would be able to see that. Does that make sense? You'd be able to
Yeah.
see the use of it. Like in Egypt, there are grinder marks on some of these statues and stuff like that. Eric von Daniken has taken pictures and posted these pictures of grinder marks on there, and I can tell you firsthand, they are grinder marks because I use grinders all day long. I know exactly what it looks like, and they are grinder marks, and that's what I would expect because no matter how perfect you try to be, you're not always perfect unless you got some amazing machinery doing the work for you, which I wouldn't put it past that either, because you look at some of the machinery we have now that is, like in some of these factories to build cabinets and work on stone and stuff, you just type in the program in there and the machine comes in and starts cutting everything out, sanding in certain ways. And with these machines, we could actually accomplish creating a 90-degree corner like I was talking about in Pumapuku with the H blocks, with those type of machines. But again, it has to be very special because doing a 90-degree corner is very, very, very hard work in stone, especially when you're talking granites and other stones like that that are super hard. The harder the stone is, the harder it is to cut and get a nice, perfect 90 degrees. Get it so smooth that you can put the lid on and you can't even get a piece of paper through there. That's special work. I mean, from what I've heard from David and David Childress, Brian Forrester, and them on those H blocks in Pumapunku, those corners are still so sharp after thousands and God, who knows how long they've been sitting there, but we know for at least a couple thousand years they've been sitting there. David and them have told me the corners of those H blocks are still so sharp that you can cut your finger if you run it across the edge. That is insane. That
That
is
is
absolutely insane. If it's been out there for thousands of years and it's still that sharp, what did they use? I'm curious.
exactly. And I was, and if the pyramids were flat faced, four sided, like we originally thought, instead of the eight sided, I started to think, we assume they moved each block individually. Maybe they moved, just like the obelisk, a huge line, set it on there, cut the stone to make it look like several stones, and maybe, that's how they did it a little faster is, you bring up one column, you set it down, you line up the two columns, somebody comes in behind you, cuts them to look like stones. And so people go, "Oh, look, you stacked stone." And you're like, "Yes." Even though you didn't. Who's to say, and if you think about it, if they moved it as a giant chunk instead of small pieces, could they have done it faster?
Well, none of those are small pieces in our way of life, but you know, I don't know. It's interesting because if you know
Yeah.
anything about construction, and then you see everything that that Great Pyramid is, because it is eight sided, and they didn't even know that until just recently.
Yeah.
But it is eight sided because the four sides actually are two sides together, and it's tilted in the center and stuff. And so it's interesting. I mean, it's like an encyclopedia. I mean, there's so much in the Great Pyramid to be able to build that, to be able to design that, you know how much understanding, how much knowledge you need to have? I mean, to put all that information into that thing from top to bottom, that's why it's the Great Pyramid, because there's just there's no other structure in my that I've ever seen that has all that knowledge within one little structure. I mean, it's amazing. The size of the earth, the distance to the moon. I mean, it has it all. I mean, it was left for us to learn from. And then there's more. I mean, look at the new discoveries they just found with those tubes going down into the ground and the what is it, the copper or whatever that spiraled around them. I mean, I haven't, because I've been moving this last month, I haven't had enough time to get in there and really research what all this is, but that's fascinating. And then that goes in with Chris Dunn and what he was talking about. It goes again to what Nikola Tesla was doing, how he was creating his free energy, and it's mind blowing. I mean, they obviously had more technology than we are aware of.
Yeah.
Um, uh, what if it was already built and they just decorated it like a cake? Well, truthfully, I didn't catch that person's name in the chat box there, but I'm going to say
Oh,
this:
Iron Bear 78.
that's exactly what happened for our history. The Egyptians we know in our history did not build the pyramids, in my opinion. Not at all. There's not a chance in hell they built them. I think these things are way, way older than we ever thought. And there's plenty of proof to show that they were decorated like cakes later on. These other cultures came in and they started putting in. You can see it in Greece. You can see it in all these cultures where they came in and they added to these and then tried to claim them as their own. Really fascinating stuff. Where was I going to go before I read his thing?
No, about the copper underneath the pyramid and the
Oh,
tubes.
yeah. Thanks. Again, I don't know much about what they've just discovered because I've been moving in the last month and so I've been super busy and haven't had a chance to really research it. But you look at that, and there's you're looking at it going, wait, there is high technology going on here, stuff that we don't even understand yet. But when you look at it, I think it compares a lot to the Tesla energy and the way he was creating free energy, which again, we hear a lot that the Egyptians were using this. And I was lucky enough, okay, when I first, actually, it was the very first weekend I had ever met Brad Olson. So I want to say it was my first weekend becoming part of the UFO community. And we were in Vegas at a 5D event, David Farman's events, which he always has great speakers there. And so it was my first UFO conference. I was lucky to meet Brad Olson there, and my whole life changed after that moment, and a few other really good friends. But the very last lecture I saw that weekend was this guy, Larry. God, I can't remember his last name, and I wish I could because he deserves it. He had the most fascinating presentation about Egypt and how they use the sun to reflect off all the buildings there to create a big ball of sun above it. But uh, after his lecture, I came up to him and I'm like, man, that was just absolutely amazing. I was just blown away. I had to come up and say hi to you and just meet you. And he's like, oh, hey, what's your name? And so and so. And we're talking, and he's like, so what do you do for a living? And at the time, I ran a wellness seminar. I do theta healing also, and so I was doing all the spiritual stuff then. I wasn't doing the stone work, but for some reason, intuitively inside, I felt like, tell him you do stone work. And so I said, I'm a marble and granite specialist. He's like, oh, great. He starts going into his duffel bag and he pulls out this mud cone, like an ice cream cone, probably about, I don't know, I would say 8 inches tall or so. But it looked like a mud ice cream cone. And he was like, hey, you know what this is? And he's pointing in the center of it. And the center had a black thing in the center of the cone going down through it. And truthfully, it reminded me of a Baghdad battery the way it looked, but it was a cone shape. And I'm like, I'm not sure what that is. I'm like, I have a feeling you know what it is. And so he's like, oh, yeah, and he goes into things. But basically, what I was holding in my hand, he's like, do you know what that is, Jeff? And I'm like, no, what is this? He goes, that's a light bulb. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, that's a handheld light bulb from Egypt. I don't know if he had permission to take this or whatever, but I had it in my hands. He's like, you know how that works? I'm like, no. I'm like, how does it work? I'm like, I don't see a plug. And so basically, it's free energy, just like Nikola Tesla was working on. And he's like, Jeff, there's light cans everywhere in these pyramids and ruins in Egypt. I mean, he was telling me all kinds of amazing, fascinating stuff. He's an Egyptologist. He's been working there for over 25 years at this point and stuff. But basically, what he said is, he's like, if you're barefooted and you grabbed a hold of this, you would ground out because you're barefooted. It would light it up. And basically on top of the cone, it probably had some glass type of bulb structure, like a light bulb would be, because we see stuff similar to this in hieroglyphs in the pyramids and temples and stuff throughout Egypt. I can't remember that. Terrible with names and stuff, but there's the one hieroglyph to where the people want to say it's a lotus, but it's obviously a light bulb that's plugged in, where the one guy standing next to it and stuff. It's basically like that, but there's no cords or anything coming at it. He says that the way it works is, yeah, you're barefooted, you stand on the ground, you ground out, because you grounding out now lights up the light, and you walk around with it. And it makes sense because they did not light up those pyramids and those ruins with torchlight. There's no way possible, because when you go deep enough in the ground, the flame would not stay lit, and that's a fact. The other fact is if they did use torches to light up down in the pyramids and the tunnels and all that stuff, there would be soot ash everywhere, and so they would ruin all of those amazing petroglyphs that they have everywhere, and we don't see signs of that at all. So obviously they didn't use torchlight to go down into these things and light it up. They used something, and I do believe they had lighting systems. I think there's a lot of evidence around these Egypt and a lot of these places that show that there was some more technology going on there. Maybe that's why these obelisks were there.
And what's interesting is I was at a psychic fair one time with a friend of mine, Bryson, and we had both just finished doing our work for what we were there for, and we went into one of the rooms. And if you remember the light bulbs that had the two prongs that we used to put in ceilings to lights, those tubes, the lady had us take our shoes off, and she goes, now rub your hands together. So we're like, okay, what's going on? She would hand us the light bulbs, and they would start to light up.
The fluorescent bulbs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
no,
if
that's
you
so
grabbed it the other way, it would turn it off. Like if you flipped it, it would turn off. And it was like
wow.
it was incredible to like stand there, because we're always told like we're a battery of energy. And to
Huh.
grab a light bulb and be able to turn it on without being an electrical source, it's like that's really cool. And depending on how much you charged yourself up, was how bright the bulb would be. So that sounds exactly like what you're saying with the Egyptian deal is, we're able to light up stuff with us, but we just don't know we can because we've never been taught.
Well, and I mean, the way the energy structure here is and on this planet is just absolutely amazing. When you look at what Tesla was trying to tap into, I mean, Tesla and I think Michael, I always get Michelangelo and who's the other one?
Leonardo?
Not Leonardo. Yeah, I always get those two confused. But Angelo was the inventor, right? Or Leonardo
No,
was, right?
Leonardo was the inventor,
Okay.
Michelangelo was the sculptor.
Okay. Leonardo, I believe, also was working on this and talking about this in his stuff, but I'm not 100% sure. But I know Nicola for sure was talking about the flying crafts and what our future would look like. And we wouldn't need to plug anything in. We wouldn't need electric cars. We wouldn't need anything like that. If we created the system right, the energy within the air would energize the vehicles. And so you'd need no battery, no charger plant, anything like that. There is energy within the ether, within the open air that we see. There's enough energy to light up anything. And that's what Nikola Tesla was working on. That's why they stopped him, because that's free energy. And of course, the powers to be back then didn't want free energy. They didn't want to give the people stuff for free. They want to charge you and make money off you. So that's why they shut down Nikola Tesla. Plus, I
Right.
don't think Nikola did himself any favors when he borrowed money from J.P. Morgan to be able to, well, he borrowed the money from J.P. Morgan to do something else, and he ended up using that money to build his tower. So that didn't help out his cause at all. But uh, they definitely, shut down a lot of his inventions. And I
Right.
think they did eventually take him out as well too for his inventions. But uh, yeah, and where we could be going today in our world could be amazing because we could be going to where we might have free energy here in the future. If the right people can get in charge and work our way there.
Right. And Iron Bears at 78's asking, would your body have to be vibrating at a high frequency to get those bulbs to light up? And the
Yeah.
interesting thing was, is the lady said, yeah, she could feel our energy. So the stronger your energy, the more it will light up. So I don't know if you need to be vibrating at a higher frequency, but just be in tune with the energy more and being the conduit. It may just naturally flow through. Whereas if you're resisting the energy conduit because you don't believe, it may not light up. Maybe it's as simple as that.
I would kind of go down that alley myself. And yeah, but that would be right then. You would have to vibrate at the right level. Belief systems, everything, especially with what I do with theta healing. I think we are an amazing being. So when you have the right belief system and all of that, that allows us to do way more than what we feel we can do today.
Yeah. And I want to touch on something too, like when you said you don't think the Egyptians built the Great Pyramid and the pyramids. There
Not
is
the
one
Egyptians we
thing,
know.
yeah, the one thing I notice is like you look at the temple at Philae for Isis. There are hieroglyphs all over the place. You go to any temple, there are hieroglyphs anywhere. You go to the Valley of the Kings or Queens, where the tombs are. There are hieroglyphs everywhere. You go in the pyramid, not a single hieroglyph. Why would the artist or creator not one, sign his name, or two, tell a story? So it's like the only structures where the Egyptians decided, nope, we're not going to tell you anything. We're going to make you guess what these are here for.
Well, in a way, doesn't that spotlight that pyramid even more? Make people go, well, wait a minute, why isn't there any hieroglyphs here? This is the biggest, baddest pyramid. How come there's nothing here? So it could draw your attention more to that pyramid because there's nothing there. Because again, like I said earlier, there's everything in that pyramid, and so I guess you don't need a hieroglyph because you got all these mathematical problems in there. You got so much in that pyramid. It's amazing. So I do agree with you, though. I mean, it's really crazy, but it shows that that's something special, in my opinion. I think it shows it's something way different than what all the other buildings were meant for.
Right.
Um,
And
so
another thing that I'm curious about your thoughts around is the other pyramids have like a stone cap on it, and they theorized the Great Pyramid had a copper cap that
then
was
these
stolen.
the
My thought is, I know it's a movie reference, but you look at Stargate where the alien craft came in, it happened to be pyramidal shape when in flight, lands, opens itself up to a bigger structure. So could the fact that there is no cap up there be there never was a cap? That was that way, so that's where they connected, and the ship was able to rest and be docked there. It's like a docking clamp where the ship could touch there, but because the other pyramids have caps, we think someone stole a cap.
I I don't know. I'm not sure how big that area is. In my opinion, just the way I see it, I don't I don't think that spot was made for a particular ship. I do believe there was a bendy stone up there. That's what I understand. And I was it made out of copper or was it made out of gold? My understanding, I thought that cap was supposed to be made out of gold, but I'm not sure. But either copper, gold, whatever, it could have been either one of those materials. Um, but if the Great Pyramid was also a power plant, with that cap being made out of copper or gold, benefit whatever that the Great Pyramid was created for. So if it was a power station to create that free energy, I've also heard it was a power station to create a certain vibrational vibe to put the beings on the planet in a higher evolutional state. Whether that's truth or not, I don't know. I think it's very interesting to go there and look at it that way as well too. I think we're coming closer and closer every day to finding out some of these answers. I think they're probably still far down the road, but we're getting closer now than I think we've ever been to discover some of these
Right.
answers. Maybe what they just discovered underneath that will help open up more answers of what we're talking about today. I really hope so. I really can't wait to get in and dive in to see what they're finding under there and what they're speculating that this is for. I actually have a few days off here. I might actually do that in the next couple days.
Well,
Um,
here's a crazy thought. As we're talking about it being a power source, what if the ship's engine is shaped like the capstone, and when it touches the pyramid and connects it, it charges the ship up and activates the power, recharges the ship, and it goes off. And that's why there's no capstone, because the ship's engine is the capstone.
that could very well be. I'm going to see if I can find this picture here that I got from Jaime. But I can't think of Jaime. You know who Jaime is? The Spanish newscaster guy that's become world famous for all of his UFO work. I can't think of his last name. Amazing guy. I really like the guy. But I saw him up at Phenomicon. Let's see if it's in here. And he was showing some pictures uh, of some UFO crafts that had come to, I don't see it here, that had come and people had captured. One was a pyramid shaped craft that not only was above Washington, D.C., this was back during President Trump's first term, it hovered over the top of Washington, D.C., and Jaime had not only the footage of the craft, but he had footage of people that filmed it in cabs and stuff, and their story about them coming home from a party late at night and they're Ubering back home, and they saw the structure above the White House. Not only was it spotted there, this pyramid shaped craft was spotted above the Kremlin as well too in Russia, and sat there and just hovered over the top spinning. Really amazing footage. I wish I could find it. If I find it, I'll try to send it to you, Michael, and then you can maybe share it with your audience later. But really, really fascinating stuff. You can find it if it's still up on YouTube. That's where I found more footage of it because I wanted to do more research on it. But really amazing stuff. So who's to say that maybe those are the beings that might have came here and created it to begin with, or maybe they came down and helped mankind or whoever was here at that time to build these pyramids, because they look a lot like what this craft was. So it's interesting. Our past is interesting. I don't think we have a clue of what our past is yet. I think hopefully it will be divulged to us, or at least what we can figure out. But I think it's interesting, man. I love what we do for fun.
Oh, yeah. And I want to take a moment because we are getting close to going to almost an hour and a half. And because, like you said in the beginning, we met online and you graciously allowed us to air my shows on your network. Do you want to share and promote what eTalk you have going on with it right now?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. Thanks. Yeah, I created etalk.tv. I mean, basically, it was, I had my own podcast show, and one day I was trying to revamp it and think of new ways of doing it. And when I went and got my website for eTalk, and it was just at that time, just eTalk, but they didn't have etalk.com. And so I took etalk.tv, and that was for my podcast. And I was, like I said, I was revamping my podcast and started to think, what do I do? And that TV just kept popping up, and I'm like, you know what? I know what I'll do. I got friends that have all kinds of podcasts. Let's make a network. And so that's what I did. When I brought you on, we had the online radio station, which we just recently got rid of. But we have got, I think, 15 to 20 different podcasts on there. You can go on there and watch people live stream, like Michael's show. My show usually live streams on there. I haven't did a show for a few months. Haven't did much of anything in a few months. So if you have got on eTalk and it looks a little stagnant, it's because of that. It's because I had the online radio station for 2 years, and it was a lot of work. It was more work than I realized. But once I got into it, I absolutely loved the radio station. And so I accepted the work, and I worked my butt off for 2 years, didn't have hardly any time to research to do what I wanted to do. And after 2 years of just looking at it, the numbers weren't there to keep the radio station. So as you know, Michael, we removed the online radio station. Now we're just back to going to be a full podcast, video, live streaming network, which also we have a social media site on there. I'm trying to get some of my friends that are writers to actually start writing blogs and articles, and I want to add that to eTalk. I want to expand it. So right now we're kind of in limbo, mainly because I worked my butt off for the last 2 years and I just needed a break. And so I've been on veg mode for the last 4 months now or so, since October, end of October. I've basically been on veg mode, just trying to relax and recoup and get my energy back. And as I mentioned to you, I just recently moved places, so I've gone through that, but now I'm done with the move. I'm just trying to organize things here. And so in the next few weeks, I see myself getting back into focusing on e-talk and getting things back together there, getting my show up and going again. I'm going to transform my show a little bit. I think I want to do a few other things that I've thought about for years, and I want to see if I can implement them onto my show here now that I have some more free time. Because, the radio station just took up way too much time. I couldn't research. I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. And I really want to get in and edit and make some documentaries and stuff. I think I have a really nice talent for that. I love doing that. And so that's one thing I've been wanting to do. But the radio station actually allowed me to do a lot of editing and stuff, as you know, for commercials and stuff, which was a blast. It was a fun making commercials, doing all that fun stuff, but it just took way too much work, especially by myself. And so we're going to revamp a little bit here in the next month or so. Hopefully within a month, we'll be able to see what the new e-talk looks like. It won't be much different. We're just going to revamp and realign the way the website is, probably take a few things out and add a few things. But I'm going to make it more user friendly and get out there and start pushing it again. And then hopefully this is going to allow me to get out and start doing more research again as well, make more documentary films, because I want to have a section for podcast. I want to have a section for more videos of documentaries and stuff like that. And I think I'm also going to have a section for lectures, because not only do I do lectures at times at conferences, but I have a lot of friends that do lectures as well. And I'd like to start to collect and put that stuff on there. So there's just, like I've talked with you before. So there's just a lot of information in one place, where if you're a researcher or just a fan, whatever you are, and you want to learn more, you can go to a one-stop place and find all the information you really want to find on all these different subjects, from crypto to UFO, UAPs, paranormal, whatever it is, and even a lot of stuff that's going on in the world today. I mean, what's happening today in the world is I think it may be even more fascinating than everything we are talking about today, Michael. I mean, what's happening on this planet right now is just, it's absolutely amazing and stunning. We got two total different sides here going on right now. I'm in heaven. I know there's another side here that are crying in their tears and stuff, but I think we're going in a great direction, and what our future looks like on this planet is absolutely amazing. I think the administration we got in there right now, in my opinion, is going to change America for the best. I mean, what RFK Jr. is already doing.
Oh. We'll see if we can get him back. It looks like had a little hiccup. Maybe not too thrilled that we mentioned the name, but that's all right. That's what we're about, is sharing the truth and bringing light onto the subject. But hopefully we'll get him back, and if not, everyone just I want to. Oh, I think he's back. Let's see. Not quite sure. But if he comes back, I'll pop him back in. But one thing I want to share as well with eTalk and Jeff is, if you are looking for a show and looking for a place to air your shows, let look at who's going to support you and everything. And so what I like and appreciate about Jeff is when he does his show, he promotes the network, which, is his network, but he also takes a moment and shares that, my show, for example. He'll take a moment in his introduction and say, yeah, on eTalk, we have shows like The Energy That Surrounds Us with Michael Koff, or Riding Through the Unknown with Michael Koff. And so, that is something to consider, that he truly does appreciate and support. But I also want to take a moment and say that, in full disclosure, Jeff and I, we were talking before the show. He has just texted me and said his battery died on his computer and he got kicked off, and he had everything plugged in, but apparently didn't turn the power strip on. So thank you, Jeff, for coming on and sharing with us. Thank you all for watching. I am going to sign out with this, and I am so grateful to everyone in the chat room, everyone that watches. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all. I appreciate your support. Blessings to you all, and make it a wonderful week. And we will see you on the next episode. All right. Good night, everyone.